Let me begin with a simple question. Have you ever noticed that when you stay calm, the world around you becomes uncomfortable? When you don't chase, when you don't beg, when you don't explain yourself again and again, people who run from depth suddenly feel exposed. Why? Because peace is rare, self-respect is rare, and a soul aligned with God's wisdom is very rare. Most people react, very few respond. Most people seek validation, very few seek truth. And when you begin to act from awareness, from inner discipline, from trust in God's timing, those who avoid responsibility, growth, and emotional depth instantly recognize you are not like the rest, not louder, not aggressive, but rooted, unshakable, guided by something higher than ego. Today, we will talk about the behaviors that silently separate you from the crowd, and why avoidant people cannot stay comfortable around someone who walks with God's strength and self-mastery. Let us stay with this one truth, because this one truth alone can change the way you live your entire life. There comes a moment when you realize that running after people, opportunities, explanations, and approval is exhausting, not because you are weak, but because you were never meant to live that way. Every day, we see it around us. Someone keeps checking their phone, waiting for a reply. Someone keeps adjusting their behavior just to be accepted. Someone keeps giving more, hoping one day the other person will finally choose them. And slowly, without realizing it, dignity becomes negotiable. But then something shifts. One day, you don't send the follow-up message, not out of ego, not out of anger, but out of clarity. You realize that if someone truly values you, they don't need reminders of your worth. You understand that chasing does not create connection, it creates imbalance. And imbalance never leads to peace. Think about a daily life situation. A train is about to leave the platform. You don't see the train running after passengers. The passengers run after the train. Why? Because movement follows value. The moment you start running behind people, you unconsciously tell them that you are unsure of your own worth. And avoidant people sense this immediately. They feel comfortable staying distant because they know you will do the work for both sides. But when you stop chasing, something powerful happens. Silence enters the space, and silence is uncomfortable for those who survive on avoidance. When you stop sending messages, stop explaining yourself, stop trying to fix what you didn't break, they are left alone with their own thoughts. They begin to wonder. They begin to feel the absence of your energy. Not because you shouted, but because you withdrew with grace. This is not about playing games. This is about alignment. When a child holds onto their parent's hand, the child feels safe. But when the child keeps running ahead without looking back, the parent doesn't chase endlessly. The parent stops, stands still, and waits. That stillness is not abandonment, it is wisdom. In the same way, when you stop chasing what keeps running, you are not giving up. You are allowing truth to reveal itself. Daily life teaches us this lesson again and again. Imagine watering a plant that has no roots. No matter how much water you pour, it will never grow. But a plant with strong roots doesn't demand constant attention, it grows quietly. Relationships, opportunities, and respect work the same way. If something has roots, it will stay. If it doesn't, no amount of effort can force it. Avoidant people are not bad people. They are often people who have learned to escape discomfort. They avoid deep conversations, emotional responsibility, and accountability. And when they see someone who is calm enough to stop chasing, they feel exposed. Because now there is no distraction. Now there is nowhere to hide. You see, chasing is noisy. Stillness is powerful. When you trust that what is meant for you will find you, you begin to move differently. You no longer rush to prove yourself. You no longer panic when someone pulls away. You understand that distance is information. And instead of reacting emotionally, you observe calmly. Picture a marketplace. The vendor who keeps shouting, begging customers to buy creates doubt. But the shop that is quiet, organized, and confident attracts curiosity. People walk in on their own, not because they were forced, but because they felt drawn. Your energy works the same way. Stopping the chase does not mean becoming cold. It means becoming centered. It means knowing that your time, presence, and emotional energy are sacred. When you stop giving them to people who cannot hold them, you create space for those who can. In everyday moments, this looks simple. You don't over-explain your absence. You don't defend your boundaries. You don't seek closure from people who only offer confusion. You let life do the talking. And life always speaks clearly. This is where faith quietly enters, not as words, but as trust. Trust that the unseen order of life knows what to remove and what to protect. Trust that when something leaves because you stop chasing, it was never meant to stay by force. And here is the most inspiring part. The moment you stop chasing, you start attracting not people but peace. You wake up lighter, you breathe deeper, you walk slower, you begin to hear your own thoughts again. And from that space, everything else aligns naturally. So remember this, you don't need to run after what respects you. You don't need to convince what understands you. And you don't need to chase what is already yours. Stand still. Stay aligned. Let those who are meant to walk with you turn back on their own. That is not weakness. That is quiet strength. There is a quiet power in learning how to pause before you react. Most people don't realize how rare this skill is because the world rewards speed. Reply quickly. Decide instantly. Defend yourself immediately. But wisdom does not live in urgency. Wisdom lives in awareness. Every day life gives us small tests. Someone speaks sharply to you. Someone ignores your message. Someone misunderstands your intention. The normal reaction is automatic. Anger rises. Words rush out. Emotions take control. And for a few seconds, it feels satisfying to react. But later, when the noise settles, you realize something was lost, your peace. Responding with awareness means you don't allow every external situation to decide your internal state. It means you understand that not every stimulus deserves a response, and not every emotion deserves expression. This is not suppression, this is mastery. Think about daily life traffic. When someone suddenly cuts in front of your vehicle, one driver slams the horn, shouts, raises their blood pressure, and carries that anger home. Another driver slows down, adjusts, and continues the journey calmly. Both faced the same situation. Only one allowed it to control them. Awareness is the space between what happens and how you choose to act. Avoidant people struggle with this kind of presence. They are used to emotional chaos, either their own or others. When someone reacts impulsively, it gives them an escape route. They can blame emotions, confusion, or misunderstandings. But when you respond with calm clarity, there is nowhere to hide. Your composure becomes a mirror, and mirrors make people uncomfortable. Picture a workplace meeting. A colleague subtly undermines you or takes credit for your effort. An emotional reaction might create drama, conflict, or even damage your reputation. But an aware response, measured words, steady tone, and timing changes the entire dynamic. Later, in the right moment, you speak facts, not feelings. And suddenly, the truth stands without force. Awareness teaches you timing. Not everything needs to be said now. Not every truth needs to be delivered emotionally. Some truths are most powerful when delivered calmly, at the right moment, without charge. In relationships, this becomes even more transformative. When someone pulls away, the emotional response is to chase, question, or demand explanations. But awareness asks a different question. What is this moment teaching me? Instead of reacting with fear, you observe patterns. You listen more than you speak. You allow space. And in that space, reality reveals itself. Silence, when chosen consciously, is not weakness. It is communication at a higher level. It says, I am not controlled by this moment. Avoidant people often mistake emotional reactions for connection. When you don't react as expected, they feel unsettled, not because you did something wrong, but because you broke the pattern. Look at daily family interactions. A child throws a tantrum. An inexperienced adult reacts with shouting, escalating the chaos. A wise adult kneels down, speaks softly, and holds the boundary calmly. The child calms down, not because of fear, but because calm is contagious. Awareness regulates not just you, but the environment around you. This is how inner discipline works. You stop being pulled into emotional storms that are not yours. You stop defending yourself in every misunderstanding. You understand that clarity does not come from volume, it comes from presence. When you respond instead of react, you also stop regretting your words. You don't replay conversations in your head wishing you had said something differently. You sleep better, your mind becomes lighter, your energy becomes clean. In daily life, this may look very simple. You take a deep breath before replying to a message that triggers you. You wait before making an important decision. You choose to walk away from a heated argument instead of winning it. These small moments of awareness slowly shape a powerful character. This way of being creates respect, not because you demand it, but because people sense stability. Your reactions are not unpredictable. Your words are intentional. Your presence feels safe. And safety is something avoidant people rarely know how to handle. They expect emotional reactions to justify their distance. When you deny them that by staying grounded, they are forced to face their own patterns. Some will grow, some will leave. Either way, you remain centered. Responding with awareness is a daily spiritual practice. It is choosing consciousness over conditioning. It is remembering that your peace is more valuable than momentary satisfaction. When you master this, life slows down in the best way. You begin to see clearly. You begin to act deliberately. And most importantly, you stop leaking your energy into situations that don't deserve it. You don't become emotionless. You become intentional. And that intention quietly sets you apart from the rest. There is a deep misunderstanding in the world about boundaries. Many people believe that setting boundaries means becoming harsh, distant, or unkind. But true boundaries have nothing to do with anger. They are not walls built out of fear, they are lines drawn out of self-respect. And the most powerful boundaries are the ones that are calm, quiet, and clear. In daily life, you see this everywhere. Think of a shop with fixed prices. The owner does not argue with every customer or explain why the price is what it is. The price is displayed clearly. Some people walk away. Some people stay. The owner remains peaceful either way. That is a boundary without anger. It does not attack. It does not defend. It simply exists. When you stop explaining yourself emotionally, something changes. You realize that not everyone needs to understand you, and not everyone deserves access to you. This realization brings freedom. You no longer feel the need to justify your choices to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Avoidant people struggle the most with this kind of clarity. They are comfortable in blurred lines, mixed signals, and emotional confusion. Boundaries disrupt that comfort. When you calmly say no, when you don't over-explain, when you don't apologize for protecting your peace, they feel unsettled. Not because you are wrong, but because clarity demands accountability. Consider a simple daily situation. Someone repeatedly calls you late at night, disturbing your rest. An angry boundary would be shouting, accusing, or blaming. A healthy boundary is saying calmly, I don't take calls after this time. We can talk tomorrow, no emotion, no drama, just truth. The moment you say it without anger, the message lands deeper. It is harder to argue with calm. Anger often weakens boundaries. When you are angry, people focus on your emotion instead of your message. They say, you're overreacting, or why are you so sensitive? But when you are calm, there is nothing to attack. Your boundary stands alone, clean and undeniable. In relationships, this becomes life-changing. Many people tolerate disrespect because they fear losing connection. They stay silent, hoping things will improve. Or they explode after holding everything in, damaging trust. Boundaries without anger avoid both extremes. They communicate self-worth in real time. For example, when someone speaks to you disrespectfully, you don't need a long lecture. You simply say, I'm open to this conversation when we speak respectfully. And if the behavior continues, you remove yourself. Not to punish, but to protect. Your actions speak louder than your words. Daily life shows us that what we allow continues. A workplace that tolerates constant interruptions will never have focus. A household without rules will never have peace. In the same way, a life without boundaries becomes chaotic. Boundaries are not restrictions. They are structures that allow peace to exist. Setting boundaries without anger also requires trust. Trust that you don't need to control how others react. Some people will respect your limits. Some will test them. Some will leave. And that's okay. A boundary is not a negotiation. It is a statement of alignment. Avoidant people often react in two ways when they meet calm boundaries. They either disappear or they try to provoke emotion. They may push buttons, ignore limits, or create guilt. This is where inner strength is tested. When you stay steady, when you don't explain repeatedly, when you don't react emotionally, you show them that your boundary is not temporary. It is who you are. Think of a traffic signal. It doesn't argue with drivers. It doesn't chase cars. It simply changes color. Those who respect it pass safely. Those who ignore it face consequences. Boundaries work the same way. They don't need force. They need consistency. In daily conversations, this might look like saying, I'm not available for this discussion, and changing the subject. Or, that doesn't work for me, without offering excuses. Or choosing not to respond at all when someone crosses a line. Silence, when intentional, is also a boundary. When you practice this, your nervous system begins to relax. You no longer live in constant defense mode. You don't brace yourself for disrespect because you trust yourself to handle it calmly when it appears. This self-trust is deeply empowering. Boundaries without anger also teach others how to treat you. Not through lectures, but through patterns. People learn quickly what behavior gives them access and what behavior does not. And those who cannot respect limits slowly remove themselves from your life, creating space for healthier connections. This is not about controlling others. It is about honoring yourself. You stop giving explanations where only acceptance is required. You stop negotiating your peace. You stop shrinking to keep others comfortable. In everyday moments, this looks quiet and simple, but the impact is profound. Your presence feels grounded. Your words carry weight. Your energy feels safe and strong at the same time. And slowly, without effort, you become someone who cannot be easily disrespected. Not because you demand respect, but because you live it. That is the power of boundaries without anger. There is a subtle shift that happens when you stop living for people's approval and start living from a deeper sense of trust. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't come with loud announcements. It happens quietly inside you. One day you notice that praise doesn't lift you as high as it used to, and criticism doesn't cut as deep. That's the moment you realize your center has moved. Most people are unknowingly exhausted because they are constantly checking the world for permission to feel worthy. A compliment makes the day good. A cold response ruins the mood. Like a message, a nod of approval becomes proof of value. And when that approval doesn't come, doubt creeps in. Did I do something wrong? Am I enough? This cycle keeps people small, reactive, and dependent. But trusting God more than people's approval changes the source of your confidence. Your worth no longer fluctuates with opinions. It becomes rooted, steady, unshakable. Look at daily life. Imagine a student who studies only to impress others. They fear failure because failure feels like rejection. Every exam becomes a judgment of their value. Now imagine another student who studies because they believe effort itself is meaningful, because they trust that sincerity will shape their future. Even if they fail once, they don't collapse. They learn. They continue. One lives in fear of judgment. The other lives in faith in process. This same difference appears in the workplace. One person constantly seeks validation from their boss, overworks to be noticed, and feels anxious when recognition doesn't come. Another does their work with sincerity, discipline, and inner commitment. They don't ignore feedback, but they don't depend on applause. Over time, people notice their consistency. Not because they asked for attention, but because trust naturally attracts respect. Trusting God more than people's approval doesn't mean you stop caring about others. It means you stop letting their opinions define you. You understand that people see you through their own fears, insecurities, and expectations. Their reactions say more about their inner world than your worth. Daily life teaches us this lesson in simple ways. A fruit tree does not check how many people admire it before bearing fruit. It doesn't stop growing because someone criticized its shape. It fulfills its nature season after season. Some people enjoy the fruit. Some ignore it. The tree remains rooted. When your sense of value comes from something higher, you stop bending yourself into shapes that don't fit you. You stop saying yes when your soul is saying no. You stop performing a version of yourself just to be accepted. And avoidant people feel this immediately. They sense that you cannot be easily influenced, pressured, or guilted into changing your core. This trust brings freedom in relationships. You no longer fear abandonment in the same way because your foundation is not another person. You give love fully, but you don't lose yourself in the process. If someone stays, it's a choice. If someone leaves, it's information, not a verdict on your worth. Think of daily conversations. Someone disagrees with you. Earlier, you might have rushed to explain, defend, or prove yourself. Now, you listen, you consider. And if you still stand by your truth, you remain calm. You don't need everyone to agree with you to feel secure. This calm confidence is rare, and it quietly commands respect. Trusting God more than approval also helps you make difficult choices. Sometimes doing the right thing means being misunderstood. Sometimes growth requires disappointing people. When your values are guided by something higher, You can walk through discomfort without losing direction. You know that temporary disapproval is a small price for long-term peace. In daily life, this shows up when you choose rest over overworking, honesty over pleasing, alignment over popularity. You stop measuring success by applause and start measuring it by inner clarity. At night, you sleep better, not because everyone is happy with you, but because you didn't betray yourself. This way of living also softens your heart. When you no longer need constant validation, you stop competing. You stop comparing. You can genuinely celebrate others without feeling threatened. You can accept feedback without collapsing. You can stand alone without feeling lonely. Avoidant people often feel uneasy around this kind of grounded faith. They are used to controlling distance through approval or withdrawal. But when approval no longer controls you, their power disappears. They can't pull you closer with praise or push you away with silence. You remain steady. Trusting God more than people's approval is not about becoming rigid. It is about becoming real. You listen, you learn, you adjust, but you don't abandon your essence. Your decisions come from alignment, not anxiety. And slowly, life reflects this back to you. The right people find you, the wrong ones fall away. Opportunities align without force. Peace becomes your natural state. You don't need to announce this trust. It shows in how you walk, how you speak, how you pause before responding. It shows in how you remain kind without being weak, confident without being loud. When your worth is rooted in something eternal, no temporary opinion can shake you. That is true freedom.